spent about $200,000 on a wedding, and I ended up in divorce.
Most marriages don't fail because of cheating or arguments. They fail because of financial pressures before the wedding. Let's get straight into it.
I spent about $200,000 on a wedding, and I ended up in divorce. Let me tell you what I've learned. At the time, I really believed that a fancier wedding was a testament to our love. I obsessed with the dress, the venue, the flowers, the dinner, thinking that if everything looked magical, the marriage would be magical. But when the party was over, real life set in. All the fancy details couldn't hold us together. I was so worried about impressing everybody else that I didn't ask myself, am I actually building something that's long-lasting and real?
This is one of the most honest admissions you ever hear about marriage and money, at least in my opinion, because weddings don't fail marriages. In my opinion, misplaced priorities do. And what people often fantasize about on Instagram and all social media, it more than likely, if not always, hides the financial stress and lacks transparency. And one thing that I genuinely believe in is that money decisions made to impress other people have a habit of showing up sooner rather than later in the form of resentment. And you can hear the sum of money this lady is saying, 200,000. Think about that now. That is a ridiculous amount of money. And there's a principle in behavioral psychology that I learned called the Diderot effect. Don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it states that when you spend, mentally triggers something in your brain, that person is more likely to spiral into more consumption and buy more things. Basically meaning if you spend without intention on things you don't necessarily need, you're probably going to more than likely spend more money than you should on more things that you don't need. Like if you go out to the shops to buy a t-shirt, you may think, oh, let me buy some jeans, let me buy some shoes to match the outfit. If something needs debt to feel special, then it was never strong enough to begin with. Which is why I believe the real question is not how beautiful your wedding will be, but how strong is your relationship under financial stress, and how good are you both with your finances individually and together.
Do people go into debt for their wedding? Like, is that how it works? Because extortionate, they're so expensive, and I don't understand how it's like, are people getting like a loan, like a personal loan? Are they doing it on credit cards? Are they saving and like purchasing things outright? Or are they literally just like getting themselves into some sort of loan or credit card debt for their wedding? Like, we want to have a wedding ours in like a couple of years, I think, but I do not want to go into debt for it. I do not want to spend a lot of money at all. I think hopefully I think he's on the same page as well. If anything, I'd rather have like a barbecue or something. I don't know, it's just like food and drink for people and family and like a day. But like, are people going into like thousands and thousands, like tens of thousands of debt for it? Is that how it happens? I have no idea. Is that normal?
No, this is definitely not normal, in my opinion at least. But this question ahead, and the fact that she's even thinking about this, puts her ahead of most people. People use credit cards, take personal loans, and justify it because it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. But what they're really doing is starting off their marriage with the biggest stressor possible, which is financial stress. And then we wonder why divorce rates are so high, my friend. If you start your marriage off being substantially into debt, especially because of a wedding or because of other things as well relevant to this, that money pressure and the payments is not just in debt. It shows up in arguments, resentment, and anxiety, which ruins relationships between people. And all of this just because of social proof, to look the part. Instead of stopping yourself and thinking, hold on, can we actually afford this? Instead, people don't question that, but instead they'll think, oh, what will Susan think of me? Or what will David think of me? I don't know who Susan or David are. You can fill in the blank. But they will think of what people will think of them, rather than if they actually have their budget to have their quote-unquote dream wedding. My friends, please listen. If you borrow money for the approval of others, you will repay it with stress. And in my opinion, if something creates unnecessary pressure in a relationship, then it's not a gift to a relationship. So you should just remove it and not do it in the first place. I now work in oncology, and even though it's not directly related, indirectly, I can really see what long-term stress does to people, especially financially, having literally spoken to thousands and thousands of people in the hospital. But my friends, don't go anywhere because this next one is very interesting. Let's have a look at it.
Oh, it's Scuba Steve who's still paying for his wedding.
What? We're about to hit our 10-year anniversary, and I found out myself last week. My wife and I were going through our finances, just getting things lined up, and she's like, yeah, we're still paying for our wedding. I'm like, we're still paying for our wedding? It's like, holy crap.
Oh.
Because
What are you still paying for?
So in her culture, she's Chinese and Filipino, the man has to pay for the wedding to show that
Am I Chinese and Filipino?
Probably because you pay for your wedding.
Yeah, is this how I'm getting told?
Makes sense.
Wow. Go ahead.
You know, typically in the white people culture, usually the bride pays for it, father of the bride, and all that stuff. But so in her culture, we do it to show that we can take care of the future wife. And so we're still paying. I think the wedding costs about $50,000 plus our honeymoon. And then it's kind of been wrapped up into other expenses like having a kid a year and a half later. You know how life is.
Well, that's not wedding, though.
But it just snowballs into all this debt.
Yeah.
And you have to pick and choose what you pay for. And the wedding has just been on the back burner.
Amen, brother.
Gosh,
Yeah.
that's tough.
So what would your advice be to people who are getting married now and thinking about putting in $20, $30, $80, $200,000 into a wedding?
Don't put that money into a house. I say still have a wedding, but just have a smaller ceremony that you can enjoy with a smaller group of people.
I think this guy said something that's really important that other people don't factor in when they think about their wedding costs. Because it's never just about the wedding. It's about how the wedding debt afterwards survives and stays with you whilst you have kids, whilst you get a house. And this wedding debt will eat into those other expenses. And there are two principles that are important here, in my opinion. The first one is opportunity cost. Because like this guy said, he could spend this money towards a house. And you're even just taking $20,000 away from this $50,000 wedding, this $20,000 will turn into almost $400,000 if invested into just a low-cost normal index fund with a 10% nominal rate of return. Obviously, this is based on speculation because I'm sure no one will mind this $400,000 being added towards their retirement. And the second principle is called sunk cost fallacy. And this is when once the money's spent, people stop questioning it, even if it's still hurting them years later because they say it's in the past. In my own opinion, at least for me, I do not want to live like this. And to all the men listening to this right now, my friends, I feel as a man, providing stability matters more than providing status because a man protects his future and his family's future too. And in my own opinion, the number one way to do that is by sorting out your finances and making sure you are okay financially long term, not just in the moment.
Weddings are just destroying people financially. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a big wedding. I had a big wedding. But there are so many people living years as a result of an event that was a day long. In some cases or cultures, maybe a couple of days, but still you get the point. Now, before anyone asks me what's the right amount to spend on a wedding, there is no right amount, but you need to live within your means. Your wedding day is meant to be a day to remember for good reason, not because of the debt that you carry for years to come.
And it will lead to massive debt if people do not make effective decisions thinking about the repercussions of their decisions at the present moment. And there's a biblical verse, I forget which one exactly, but the verse goes like this. And I find it really effective, especially when it comes to events such as weddings. This biblical principle says, count the cost before you build. And that's not just about money. That's also about wisdom. And it's about asking the right questions, which indirectly makes you richer. Because if you ask the question of, does this decision strengthen what we're building in our relationship, or does it make it just look impressive in the moment, you will most likely think 2 or 3 times before making such a big purchase and having a massive wedding if you cannot afford it. Because we've been stereotypically brainwashed, in my opinion, to think that wedding is the most important day of our lives. In the movies, you see this all the time, but they never talk about the financial pressure. And not only that, it normalizes going into substantial debt to ensure that you have a great wedding. Like, it's just so stupid in my opinion. And again, I feel it's behavioral because when I talk about money, you realize I talk a lot about behavior because I do feel wealth is a habit. I've said this before, I've aforementioned it, and I'll always believe in this statement. And because it's a habit, it means it's linked to behavioral traits. And if wedding is your biggest decision or one of the biggest decisions in your life, which it is, then it sets a self-operating system for every decision after that, subconsciously. Because you're teaching yourself that it's okay to take out a massive loan if you can't afford something. Think about it. And that, in my own opinion, is not right. Because in my own opinion, what builds a strong relationship and a marriage isn't how much you spend, isn't how impressive you look, but it's about only how you two together decide and work together under pressure. This final video that you're going to see right now, my friend, is the most important one. And I think you'll be shocked by this statistic.
The more expensive the wedding is, the higher chance of divorce. And this is not my opinion. The Montari Law Group did a study and found that when couples have weddings that cost over $20,000, they were 1.6 times more likely to get a divorce. That means if you spend $20,000 on your wedding, you are 60% more likely to get a divorce than people who don't. I think there's 3 major things that cause that. Number 1, financial stress. When couples first get married, they're walking into their marriage with debt from their wedding, and that's immediately going to cause tension and resentment. Number 2, when couples do spend over $20,000 on their wedding, they are choosing to prioritize image over the functionality of their actual relationship. And lastly, the correlation with personality traits. Those who are drawn to extravagant displays often score higher in traits like narcissism and materialism, which are both linked to lower relationship satisfaction and longevity.
Statistics like this make people uncomfortable because it challenges the narrative that we're also familiar with, which is spend a lot of money on your wedding because it's worth it, because it's once in a lifetime. And although I understand what they mean, there is this principle called signal versus substance. It's simply said the signals are what you show and substance is what you build. In this case, weddings are heavy on signaling what you're showing compared to actual marriage between two people, the actual marriage, the relationship. I feel when people don't have clarity between the two, they confuse it and invest heavily into the wrong thing. Because that's the only rationale of why I understand people to spend substantial amounts, 5 figures, maybe even 6 figures, into a wedding. If the numbers don't work and don't work for your current situation, then it doesn't matter. And to the ambitious men watching these videos, in my own opinion, strong men optimize for durability, not to be rewarded, not for applause or anything like this, not for any expectations. Because I believe men should lead with principle first. Because all the small decisions you make, they compound over time. Same way with investing. And same way with the investing challenge I'm currently doing, which you guys have probably seen on my channel. And it may be annoying viewing it every day, trust me, like I understand. But let's be honest, you're probably not even watching it and that's okay. But I'm doing it to really show you how such a small discipline and a small task, but doing it every single day, can compound into substantial rewards over time. And this is why wedding debt just will destroy couples in 2026. So please, my friends, if you are getting married in 2026 or soon, just factor the things we've talked about in this video. And of course, I wish you a fantastic wedding. And don't do anything I wouldn't do. Wink, wink. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, my friends. Leave your comments down below about what you thought. It will be great to hear. Click the link in the bio to explore my online community I've made for ambitious men just like you. If you enjoy these videos, I'm sure you'll enjoy that a lot more. But it's still in its early stages, so I'd really value your feedback on it, because I'm looking for the first founding members to tell me actually what you want to see into it, so I can create it and make it good for you. YouTube recommends you see one of these 2 videos over here, my friends. Click one, and I'll see you over there.